Happy to introduce Jesse over here, Jesse Henry. Come on over.
Yeah, here we go.
Uh,
All right, get a round of applause.
So I had the pleasure of meeting Jesse at a recent event that we did at my apartment. It was an AI workshop. If you were there, I mean, it was absolutely incredible. Oh, here, it's most. Hey, Gage, you have all the info? Sorry.
This is how Kanye shows up to his speaking engagements, you know? It's like, hold on. We got some
Can
important
you
business.
buzz Gage in?
See there now?
Yeah, he's right now. Yeah. All right. See you soon. All right, bye. Sorry, that's the only person we're waiting on. So I think.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I had the pleasure of meeting Jesse at our AI workshop. It was so much fun. It was about 25 of us. Similar setup, nice and casual. Extremely valuable event. We all learned so much. Jay spoke, Will spoke, and I figured, well, I want to do more of these events, bring amazing people. And I also wanted to kind of play with the contrast between AI and then the kind of things that AI can't do, the human skills that I think are more important and more valuable now than ever before. So among those skills, you have things like public speaking, communication, knowing how to show up to a room and feel confident, knowing how to manage anxiety, a lot of the interpersonal skills, building trust, and, in the process, also knowing how to leverage your health so that you can show up clear, energized, and have a real sense of joy and satisfaction. So, everybody slow What's going great? So, what's up, man?
How's it going?
So anyway, so I really want to play the duality between doing, AI workshops where we're building dope shit with all the latest tools, and then every other week or every other month, you meet up and we speak about the human skills that are getting left behind. Nowadays you can get on Gmail and have your AI draft something up for you overnight, and then all you have to do is hit send, and it's perfectly written and it's grammar is perfect. It's got all the M dashes, right? So that's really cool. But the more that we outsource our brilliance to AI, the less that we become as humans. Who here has watched Wall-E? Right? So, they don't want to end up as a fat blob that just sits there, taps away, looks, watches TV. I want to take charge of my life, and I want to hone in on the things that only we can do as human beings, and simultaneously build amazing businesses, brands, and communities with the help of AI. So I think having that those dual strengths is priceless. And that's going to be the underlying theme of what we're doing here today. So what I want to ask you guys all to do is to try to be as absolutely present as you can be. So I want to ask you all to either turn off your phones or put them on airplane mode, or at least silence them. And I really want you all to feel human here today. To just completely put everything, all the responsibility aside, and I want you to feel what it's like to be a human being. All right. Anyway, want to go ahead and introduce my friend Jesse Henry. He's one of the youngest. I think he's the youngest person to work with Tony Robbins. Right.
Yep.
He's a TEDx speaker, and he worked for Oren. What was his last name?
Oren Klaff.
So the author of Pitch Anything. So he was his right hand guy, if I understand that correctly.
Yep.
Like me, he actually had a stutter. We both grew up with a stutter, if you can believe that. So we both. He'll tell the story. He'll do his own intro, more elaborate, but it's really cool to have this in common. We find our therapy is this. When I get the chance to speak to you guys, I can go back to when I was a young guy growing up, in school, and I was the one kid that would turn like that shade of red, like that shade of red when I was up in front of a class. Like, I would just dying of anxiety in front of a classroom. And I'm very much in touch with that part of myself. So when I do this, it's literally a therapeutic experience for me. And I think we have that in common. So, you don't have to have that kind of trauma and life experience to motivate, these kinds of skills. But I want you all to really think to yourself, how can you apply this in your day to day so that you can have that voice of courage and confidence with anything that you do. All right. So anyway, Jesse Henry.
Thank you guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for
Thank
doing
you guys so much for hosting. And I know I'm a co-host, but seriously, this wouldn't be possible.
And thanks to Jay. Thank you, Jay. Where's Jay?
Jay?
Thank you for hosting us in this beautiful apartment. Yeah.
It's a little bit bigger space, but
Yeah.
I got some more chairs.
With a better view,
Better view.
Anyway, all right, we'll sit down.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Bro.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for coming. Thank you, Jay, for hosting us in Section 8 housing here. We're so blessed. I think, before we get started, I'd love to learn a little bit about the room here and get a good feel for who's in the room. Who here, by a show of hands, has had a fear of public speaking at some point in their life? Okay, pretty much everyone except this guy. Pretty confident over here. Who here would like to get better at public speaking over the next few years? Okay, pretty much everyone. Even this one. That's surprising. And who here thinks that getting better at public speaking could add a couple $1,000,000 to their business over the next few years? Show of hands. Okay. So for those of you who had a fear of public speaking, if I bring you up here to give a speech right now and you need to take a shit, that is the best bathroom to take a shit in. So it is true. It will warm your butt for you. That toilet seat is magical. So over the next 20, 30 minutes, guys, I just want to have a conversation with you. Feel free to raise your hand, ask some questions. It's going to be very conversational based. I'm not going to speak at you. I want to have a conversation about how to be better at communication and how communication can add to your business and your personal life. So when I was a kid, as Andres mentioned, I had a really bad stutter. I stammered over pretty much half the words in the alphabet. And I grew up and became a speaker for Tony Robbins. I did a TED Talk. I was really, really blessed. And yes, I worked my ass off, but I was probably the worst communicator in every room that I ever walked in as a kid. And for many years, I had this struggle where I had to get up on stage when I didn't feel good. I had to get up on stage when I was millions of dollars in debt in front of hundreds of investors. And I think what you guys need to realize is when you get up on stages, you're not going to have the best night's sleep. You might be in a fight with your girlfriend. You might be millions of dollars in debt. And the reality is no one gives a fuck. No one cares. You have to be able to get up on stage and give the presentation of your life when you don't feel like it. And so today what I want to do is I want to cover 5 main topics in public speaking. I want to start with psychology because the psychology of speaking is actually the most important part. If you get the psychology right, you got 50, 60, 70% of the battle done. The frameworks that you use in your presentations, I'm going to cover a lot of frameworks today, not just frameworks for your presentation, but frameworks for an intro, frameworks for telling a joke, and some other frameworks that I think you're going to enjoy. Stories is a foundational part of giving good presentations, engaging an audience, extremely important, and obviously nailing the offer at the end of the presentation. You can nail 4 out of these 5 and you're never going to be an elite speaker. You really need to nail all 5 of these in order to master the art of public speaking, which is what we'll cover today. So I have probably 30 or 40 tips. A very kind person that's sitting here in the room challenged me to boil it down to the 5 that are most important. Now, who here in the room would identify as an introvert by a show of hands? Just out of curiosity. Okay, call half the room. That's kind of surprising, Jay. I've known you for 20 years. One of the problems that introverts have is they feel like they're not good at public speaking. And the challenge that I have to that person is imagine the Dungeons and Dragons nerd, like the Minkus, who's like obsessed with Dungeons and Dragons. If he was to be in this room, right, he'd probably be pretty introverted. But you put that Dungeons and Dragons guy at a Dungeons and Dragons conference, and what happens to that guy? He is the most vivacious, bubbly, charismatic person that you've ever seen in your life. And so one of the keys to great public speaking is to take the psychology of I'm having a conversation with friends about topics that I love. Now, every single person in this room is in a business, hopefully, that they love and that they actually care about. And when you communicate about topics that you love and you care about, and you take that psychology, all of a sudden you're not giving a presentation to a bunch of random strangers. You're giving a presentation to people who also care about the same topics that you care about. This is one of the most foundational psychology concepts that you can use in your public speaking. The second one is the brain cannot tell the difference between nervous and excited. It's the same neurotransmitters. It's the same parts of the brain that light up. So when you're nervous, right before you get on stage, everyone gets nervous. That's a good sign. Having butterflies in your stomach is a great thing. What you need to do is pivot from nervousness to excitement. For many, many years, and even when I spoke for Tony Robbins and I got off the stage for my TED Talk, if I gave a 98%, I was focused on the 2% I did wrong. I was focused on that clunky transition. I was focused on how I didn't nail that exit, that offer. I was focused how I didn't bring it all back round circle at the very end of the conversation. And the reality is that you're never going to be a perfect communicator, but the only type of perfect communication is the communication that's authentic. So I'd really encourage you to not try to be the next Tony Robbins. Don't try to be the next me. Don't try to be the next Jay. Try to be the best version of you, because you're always going to be a first-rate version of you. when I tried to be a first-rate version of Tony Robbins, I was a second-rate version of him. I'll never be a better Tony than Tony is. But what I can do is be a best version of me. And I'd encourage every single person in the room to really identify their traits. It doesn't matter if you're extroverted or introverted, whether you're comfortable with public speaking or not. Your key is that embodying the best version of you is what's going to make you an incredible speaker. I'm not going to go through all these one by one. Congruence is probably one of the things that you can most easily tell in a person. Have you guys ever seen someone who is saying all the right words, but you can tell that their feelings are a little off, that their body language is a little off? Maybe they're a little closed off like this, or they're leaning up against someone or something. What you're going to notice is that that person's not congruent. And the congruent person in the room is the person that's most effective at communication. So what you really want to focus on is your thoughts, emotions, words, and actions all moving in the same direction. Because when those things move in the same direction, you're going to be able to be the best communicator that you could possibly be. So I'll give you guys a framework for the first 90 seconds. This is the framework that I just used. Now, I didn't do it perfectly. I probably butchered some of the words here, but the concept here is to crack a joke. Cracking a joke is one of the best things you can do in your public speaking. I'm not asking everyone here to be a comedian. Who here likes stand-up comedy by a show of hands? Any stand-up comedy fans? I'm not a stand-up comedian, but I did hire a climate comedy coach to teach me how to make this climate crisis, which is something that I'm very passionate about, funny, which is really difficult. The reason why I did that is because there's a high correlation between what you are focused on, and if you're laughing about something, and your ability to remember that thing. And so I'd really like you guys to embody the ability to figure out how to create some comedic humor in the presentations that you're developing. So I like the format of crack a joke. Starting off, I cracked a joke about Section 8 housing. Obviously, hopefully everyone in this room understands this is not government subsidized housing. I asked 3 questions that helped me understand the audience. The reason why I do that is because it makes people in the audience feel like you're having a personal conversation with them. I don't want to give you guys a canned presentation. I want to have a conversation about topics that you guys are interested in, and I want to know who I'm actually talking to. Asking 3 questions is a great strategy to make sure that the audience feels like you actually care about them. Then I crack a joke. So you ask 3 questions, you're going to be able to crack a joke about one of those 3 questions. I tongue-in-cheek cracked a little joke about that wasn't planned or anything. You just didn't raise your hand. I'm like, what? This guy's a perfect public speaker, apparently. He should be doing my presentation. Not perfect. But I was like, oh, maybe he should be doing the presentation. And then what I like to do is I like to set expectations. Over the next 20 or 30 minutes, here's what we're going to talk about so that the people in the audience understand that you actually have set intentions for the group of people that you're communicating with. So I'm not Picasso over here. I'm somewhere between artistic and autistic. So bear with me here on this example. Most people try to deliver a speech. They go from point A to point B. And this is an extremely important concept. So when you try to go from point A to point B in a straight line, you have a very boring, monotone, flatlined conversation with the audience. There's no engagement. When I did my TED Talk, at best it was this. I had a few laughs at the beginning, and then I kind of sputtered out through the end. I didn't bring anything background circle. I made so many errors in my TED Talk, and you're more than welcome to watch it. It was about 10 years ago. Now, this is my take. This is my artistic representation of what a perfect 3-part framework is. Today, I'm delivering a 5-part framework. So it's somewhere between these 2 things. And the reason why this is important is that at the end of your presentation, you need to be able to bring the conversation background circle. This is the error that I made in my TED Talk. My TED Talk would have been a lot better had I right here brought the conversation background circle so that everyone in the audience knew how the end of my story, which was about my stutter, connected to the 3-part framework that I was delivering. So today I'm delivering a 5-part framework. What you'll notice is that there's a rising action, right? There's some humor, there's some comedy, and then there's a 3 or 4 or 5-part framework that goes along with it. Who here in the audience has a framework within their business that they want to end up teaching on stage at some point? Anyone by a show of hands? A few people in the room. So this is going to be really important as you start to become a better communicator, to understand not just how to deliver the framework, but how to embed stories into every part of that framework. So here's a couple templates for crafting jokes. The original version of the slide before last night had 7 different templates on it. Again, I was challenged by a wonderful person in the room to bring that down to 3. Now, these are templates that every single comedian uses. Every single comedian that you watch on Instagram, that you laugh at, every Netflix special has these types of jokes. So the first one is a broken assumption. This is, I gave my dog a bath the other day. The fur stuck to my tongue. The reason why, and no one laughed, it's okay. I didn't deliver it with any type of humor. But the reason why this is supposed to be funny is the assumption is that you bathe the dog in a bathtub or in a shower, right? No one's assuming that you bathe the dog with your tongue. The rule of 3 would be the next one. This only works with 3. It doesn't work with 2, and it doesn't work with 4. So my morning routine is simple: coffee, meditation, and watching influencers destroy my mental health. The third one is always the punchline. And what you want to try to do, which I didn't do perfectly, is have the punchline as the last word in the joke. The X of Y can be executed in many different ways. The X of Y that I wrote is Hollywood is the all-you-can-eat buffet for pedophiles. I know. I went a little hard on that one. The first 2 were real PG. I had to see if I could throw you guys off. When I hired my climate comedy coach, what I was really looking for was, and his name was Stuart. I was like, Stuart, I'm trying to understand the templates. I'm trying to understand the framework so that I can craft jokes, I can craft humor without having to think about it, without having to like structure a joke. And what I'd like you guys to do is really think through what the topics are that you're talking about and where there's underlying humor in what you're talking about. Now, if you're in the AI space or the marketing space, you guys are probably getting so many memes on your Instagram at this point about AI, about marketing, about, digital creators, about the influencer economy. There's so much humor that you can craft around that. And I would really encourage you to try to embed humor into your next presentation. So the goal of a framework is really simple. What you want to do is create mental shortcuts for people. Really make it easy for them to understand what you're trying to articulate. Because what this is going to do is it's going to allow you to easily remember what you have to say, and it's going to allow the audience to easily repeat what you're trying to communicate. One of the litmus tests that I use for a good framework is if someone in the audience were to go to the water cooler the next day and have a conversation with their coworker, would they be able to articulate your framework to the person at the water cooler? Now, most of the times, if you're not consciously creating a framework, the answer is going to be no. Most of the times when people leave a presentation, the next day, they might remember one thing about that presentation. So what you want to try to do is create a framework that's easy to remember, easy for you to say, and easy for your audience to repeat. Now, there are many frameworks for stories, but all stories are stories of change. This is the hero's journey. Who here is familiar with the hero's journey by a show of hands? Everyone here is some type of entrepreneur in marketing. All stories are the same. First we were here, then this crazy shit happened, and now we're here. That is every story of all time. They're all structured the same way. No story is a story without that story arc. Like if I were to tell you a story and say, hey, I had a perfect childhood and I'm a billionaire and I shit glitter and I have no problems in life. Is that a story that anyone can relate to by a show of hands? Absolutely fucking not. No one can relate to that story because there's no person on the planet who got to where they're at that's successful, that you want to replicate, that you want to emulate, that hasn't been through some pain. And so as you're creating your stories, make sure that you're embedding some element of pain, of struggle, because that is the hero's journey and that's what people can relate most to. So here's the simple framework. Paint the picture can very easily and simply be who, what, where, when, why, how. Okay? This is probably the easiest way to start a story. The more detail-oriented you can get, the better you're going to be able to paint the picture for the audience and really get them to understand what life was like at the beginning of your story. Naturally, you want to put the problem before the solution. Many people like to talk about their success before they talk about the problem. Mistake number 1. And then at the very end, you want to deliver the main key point that you're trying to drive home to the audience. So this is your story bank. Your story bank can be broken into 3 main parts: origin stories, struggle stories, and transformation stories. If you are sitting here right now and you're sitting here thinking, I don't have any stories to tell on stage, you're fucking wrong. This is the template for your stories. Everyone has stories from their childhood. Everyone has stories of failure and setbacks. Everyone has stories of successes and wins and travels and career and first milestones and hobbies and passions. You have stories within you, and your job as you start to develop a keynote speech and the frameworks that you want to go to market with is, how do I tell stories that convey my framework and that lead to a call to action? Because those are the stories that are going to make the most impact. If you're looking for higher engagement, let me be the first to tell you that the best speakers on the planet are not the ones who have a monologue. They're the ones who have a dialogue. And I'm sorry to say, no one in this room has asked a question yet. and I'm waiting for some questions, which is totally fine. But one of the problems that a lot of mediocre speakers have is they just have a monologue. They're just talking at you. There's no engagement. They're not asking you to raise their hand. They're not engaging the room well. And when I like to engage the room, I break the room into quarters. Now, this is a really small room.
Prefer that we ask questions now.
Absolutely. Go for it, man.
No, that was the question.
Absolutely. Oh, yes. The answer to that question is feel free to ask questions now.
Great.
Yeah. Do you have more questions though?
No, that's all.
Not yet. Okay.
You're just in a flow state.
Absolutely,
We're
guys.
engaged. We're engaged. You're engaged.
There we go. And sometimes when you're being engaging from the stage, it can be really hard to tell because sometimes people have what I call the zombie face. So they're just completely glossed over. And to the person from the stage, it might seem like no one's paying attention, but really oftentimes they're actually extremely engaged. They're so dialed in and they're so locked in that they actually look like they just saw a ghost. So if you're up on stage and you see a room of 25 people that just saw a ghost, maybe it's not the worst sign on the planet. These are simple tips. Project your voice. Fortunately, when I was a kid, I did stage acting. I know how to project my voice. I'm trying to balance. This is a small room. I don't want to scream at you. If this was a room of 400 people, I wouldn't need a microphone because I'm able to project my voice in that way without feeling like it's screaming. Cut the jargon, guys. If you're in a specific industry that has all this niche language, figure out how to communicate it in a third grade language. If you can't communicate it in a third to fifth grade language, you're making it too complicated. If people want more deeper insights, you're going to be able to dive into those details. But what you really want to do is simplify it for people, again, so that not only it's easy for you to communicate, but it's easy for them to communicate to their friends. Agreement frames. Who here by a show of hands heard of agreement frames? Yes or no? No one's heard of agreement frames. Wouldn't you guys agree that the ability to get people to agree in your presentation is going to help you drive towards a call to action by a show of hands? Anybody? Yes or no? So you guys see what I'm doing right now, right? I'm teaching you agreement frames by actually doing it. I'm taking what's on the slide and I'm teaching it to you guys by actually doing it. Agreement frames are one of the most powerful ways to create anchors in the room. So one of the first agreement frames that I used for you guys was, who here believes that, public speaking could add millions of dollars to their business? What I do, I created an anchor. So if I were to sell you something for 500 grand right now, you're like, oh wait, holy shit. Like it's $1 million skill set. He's selling me something for half off. And so what you really want to figure out how to do is create these assumptions that is going to be really easy for other people to agree with, because when you create assumptions, you allow people to agree or disagree with it. My goal isn't to get everyone in the room to raise their hand. Obviously, we have one person here who's like defiant and doesn't want to raise their hands, right? But your goal is to really get that audience participation. Tony Robbins does a great job of this. There are many different ways to create agreement frames. This was another one of those slides that had 50 bullet points on it till about 11 p.m. last night. And I really challenged myself to boil it down to the few most important ones. If you are interested in anchoring, I just use the example. Yeah, go for it.
Got a quick question. So, do you practice this, Alec?
I built this presentation 72, 96 hours ago. I've never said any of these words out loud. Okay. I'm very passionate.
You just know your points and you're just hitting it up.
I mean, I know that I have a slide after this. I couldn't tell you what the slide after this is, right? I would not recommend that. I would recommend knowing your slides. I don't recommend scripting. I recommend knowing that for this slide, there should be 3 or 4 bullet points, right? And you need to lock in on those bullet points. If you're going to memorize anything, memorize the first 90 seconds of your presentation. Definitely memorize your frameworks and know your stories. You don't need to memorize your stories because they should be part of you. You're not lying in your stories. So if you're telling a story about your childhood, you shouldn't have to memorize beat for beat that story. You should intuitively know that story because it's coming from you. So in terms of what you should memorize, the first minute to 2 minutes is the best opportunity that you have to memorize something. After that, your cortisol levels drop. Your peak anxiety peaks around the first 60 seconds. After that, it's free flowing. It doesn't even matter what comes next. I'm at the point where I'm just in a flow state right now. Yeah.
If someone asks you a question and you don't know the answer to it.
Did I just say, I don't know? Or great question.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. I think sometimes though, like not whether I'm pitching someone or someone's asking.
Yeah.
That's right. They might ask something very nuanced.
Totally.
And within 3 seconds, I'm like, shit.
And if the context matters, if you're in a sales presentation, the worst thing you could do is give some bullshit answer.
Yeah.
That's horrible, right? What you want to say in a sales presentation is, that's a great question. I don't have the exact answer to that. Let me get back to you in 24 hours. And then actually get back to them, right? You don't want to short them on that answer. The worst thing you can do on stage is bullshit. As I said on slide number 3 or 4, the only type of perfect communication is authentic communication. So if you're bullshitting people from the stage, they're going to be able to feel that.
You provided an answer. I was going to share a tip that I use because I'm in sales and mortgage. There's a lot of like nuance to it and guidelines or whatnot. So I always would say, like, I'm 98% certain that I know, but I want to be 100%. Can I get back to you on that?
That works. That works.
So you're still planning that I have like a high level of knowledge at 98%, but I'm not
Totally.
mislead you. So it gives you like a degree of like you wouldn't mislead them,
Right.
even if you're fairly certain.
And there's context here. If this was a room of 400 people, I wouldn't encourage people to like ask questions in the middle of the conversation. I'd have them wait till the end, because this is a small, intimate setting. I want to create a dialogue here, and I don't want to be speaking at people. So I want to make sure that the audience is engaged and that I'm able to answer their questions as they pop up.
So when somebody, I guess, interrupts you, and asking a question, to get back on track, like, do you look quickly at your notes, or like how do you...
I don't have notes. What you see there is what's right there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, like, are you focusing on anything in specific, like when you're looking at the room, or are you just trying to...
So I break the room up into quadrants, and this is I actually drew something on a slide right here. So you can break the room up into quadrants like this. This works in a room of 100 people. It works in a room of 20 people. It works in a room of 10,000 people. The only difference in a room of 10,000 people is not that you need to break the room up into quadrants, but that you need to split it into thirds. When you do this, what you want to do is find someone at each point in the conversation, in the middle of each of these quadrants, and make eye contact with them. Who here feels like I've made eye contact with them at some point in this conversation? And this is a small group, right? But what Tony Robbins does great is he makes a room of 10,000 people feel like he's having a one-on-one conversation with them. He's a fucking master at it. He's really good. He does a great job at it. And he also does a great job at interventions and making sure that the intervention that he's giving to one person is relevant to all the people. So as you guys are asking me questions, I'm trying to answer those questions in a way that relates to everyone in the room. Quadrants is the easiest way to break up a room and make sure it's easy for people to feel like you're having a one-on-one conversation with them. So don't be fooled. The same strategy that I'm using here, breaking the room into quadrants, it works in a room of 10,000 people. Yep.
I have a question. Like, to be engaging, how long will you recommend that they're public speaking person to?
It's a great question.
It's like a boring.
Yeah. TED Talks are what, 18 minutes? TED Talks are 18 minutes because they studied the human attention span and when that peaks. Yeah. So attention is going to peak in the first 60 to 90 seconds. Your job as a speaker is actually to figure out how to, let me see if I can do this. So you have time right here and you have attention right here. So what ends up happening with most speakers is attention goes up, and then throughout the end of the talk, that's the average speech. And so what your goal is, I'm just trying to figure out how to do this right. Oh, nope. It's on white mode. There we go. There we go. Oh, it did it. Cool. There we go. So what your goal is you have time right here, you have attention right there. And what your goal is to, this is a master public speaker right here. And how do you do this? Every beat, this is getting the audience to raise their hand, asking questions, participating, getting your framework, getting people to stand up, do an activity. Now, the bigger the audience is, the more important it is that you have activities that break up the energy in the room. And there's many different activities you can do. I won't cover all that in this conversation. That's its own kind of activity in and of itself. But your goal is to maintain attention and maintain status, right? As attention goes up, status goes up. The wrong way to get status is to brag about how great you are and how you shit glitter and how you've never had a problem in your life. The right way to get it is by giving people actual value that they can use in their day-to-day life. So I'd say like the perfect time is like 20-minute presentation. This is probably going to go a little bit over that. If you're giving something over a 30-minute presentation, what I would recommend is breaking up the energy. And as you go above 30 minutes, I would recommend workshopping in some way, shape, or form. Workshopping works great. If you have something like this, if you have a whiteboard, you're able to easily engage the audience. When you're doing a 45 or 60-minute keynote presentation and all you have is a slide deck and you're not getting people to raise their hands, you're not using agreement frames, you're not using anchoring, really, really hard to maintain attention. And that's when you're going to get people that are on their phones, they're texting, they're catching up on emails. Those are the people that are losing their attention because you haven't been able to maintain it. So the trick that I use is if everyone right now is on their phones, I'm like, oh, they're all taking notes because they're so interested in what I have to say. So you kind of have to gaslight yourself a little bit. That might be right, that might be wrong. But like when you're up on stage, the worst thing you can do is be like, oh shit, everyone's on their phones. Like I'm totally screwing this up right now. You want to be able to use the feedback loop. But if you see everyone on their phones, you need to change your psychology and you need to change the energy in the room because that's on you.
So is that why Tony makes everybody get up and like dance?
Totally. High five 10 people, hug 10 people, say yes, make your move. I don't know if anyone's heard these things, but these are the things he does to break the energy in the room.
A lot of times someone gives me an hour.
Yeah.
What do you do?
You want to create probably 3 activities throughout the hour. Okay. I'd recommend doing the first activity within the first 10 minutes. Let people know that you're going to keep them on their toes. The worst thing you can do is get people into a trance. Trance puts people to sleep. Sleep loses their attention. Your attention goes down, your status goes down. By the end of your presentation, people are just waiting for you to get off stage. It's a trap. So you want to try to workshop it. You definitely want to spend the first few minutes cracking a joke, getting to know your audience, getting them to raise their hands, because now they feel like you actually care about them. When they feel like you're giving them a canned presentation, you've lost. And this is why the first 90 seconds is so important. Your ability to ask 3 questions that get people going, get people energized, and get people to feel that you actually care about what they have to say and how what you have to say is going to impact them. That's probably the most meaningful thing you can do in the beginning outside of a joke to make sure that someone has the intention to lean in for the rest of the combo.
You mentioned agreement frames.
Yep.
Or what's another good example? If you don't mind sharing. But one. Oh, sorry, I appreciate this.
No, you're good. You're good. Wouldn't you agree that public speaking is one of the best skills that humans can learn today? Yes or no? By show of hands. Yeah. Okay. So I use like 2 or 3 there. I just stack them. I tried to use multiple in that example. So I started with 1 and then I ended with 2. So I actually used 3 agreement frames there because there wasn't this implicit direction for you guys to raise your hands. Also, if you're going to use the raise your hands, you want to raise your hand. So there's many different types. This is a short summary. Again, this slide was so overly verbose and when you're designing slides, you want to try to break it into simple concepts. The slide that I had was the ugliest orphan child slide that you've ever seen on a presentation deck. This is a much cleaner representation of agreement frames. There's many different ways to execute it. And if you just type in agreement frames on Google, you're going to get a good amount of hits. Yeah.
What are some common ways that you integrate workshops like on the fly? Let's say that you feel like you need to break it up a bit. You have any you have in your back pocket that you can use to...
So not in my back pocket. Most of the time that I'm doing presentations, I'm speaking about chemical warfare, toxin exposure, sustainable chemistry. This is my first time delivering a presentation on anything like what we're talking about. So I learned all these skills from Tony Robbins, the TED Talk days, stage acting, speech therapy, was really bad at it. Now I became better at it. And now I want to teach people how to do it. If this were, so I'll use the example, if this was a 60-minute presentation, I'd have everyone, if they don't have a paper and pen, take out their phones, write down the topics that are most interesting to them that they want to get on stage about. Then I'd have them write down the frameworks that they might be able to use for those topics. And so I'd actually have people start crafting their presentation, not in terms of their slide deck, but I'd have them start outlining it so that when they get to a computer and they open up Google Slides, they can hit go. It's going to depend on the topic that you're speaking on. So you're speaking on biohacking, longevity, stuff like that. Is that the main focus? That can be difficult, right? Because people, unless they have their blood tests in front of them, their microbiome tests, their methylation tests, it can be really, really difficult. So what a really good framework for workshopping is starting with an audit. right? This is like what every consultant does. Like, I can't tell you where to go until I know where you're already at, right? And so maybe for you, the audit might be write down the 5 most toxic foods that are in your pantry and your fridge. Write down the 5 habits that drain your energy the most. Excessive screen time, not getting out in nature enough, not working out enough, right? Because like, here's your audit, right? Now that you know that they're sitting behind a screen all the time, they're eating fucking high fructose corn syrup, red 40, blah, blah, blah bullshit. Like now you can start to engineer a solution for them. The problem with workshopping is you can't give these blanket solutions. So what you have to do is speak in generalities. So in this example, say, because I'm kind of tangentially in your space, you say, who here by a show of hands, had food on their list that had synthetic ingredients in it? Fucking everybody. We all eat fucking synthetics. That's the problem, right? It's sweeteners, it's preservatives, it's emulsifiers, it's anti-caking agents, it's all of these different things. This is what's killing us, with the goal to get back to natural ingredients, natural solutions, whole foods, right? So I'm just kind of like giving you an example of how I would workshop it. But a great workshop starts with an auditing process, because once you've audited people in your sector, now they're actually looking at their problem. It's not just in their head. It's not just on your presentation slide. They're like, oh shit, for Chris, like, oh, I only have 2 credit cards and none of them have airline mile points. I can't get into Emirates, right? And now Chris has a solution to get you into Emirates for that example. So like really think through, what are the assumptions that I need the user in the audience to understand in order to provide my solution? Because really at the end of the day, like, you're driving people towards a transformation. You're driving people towards an offer. It's really your civic duty. And I think I have a slide on this. It's your duty, it's your obligation, it's your responsibility to get them enrolled into that offer, because that's the transformation that's actually going to make an impact. The biggest mistake that I made during my Tony Robbins experience is that I would try to solve people's problems in the 60-minute presentation. Big mistake. The real solution is coming to Tony Robbins' 3.5-day workshop called Unleash the Power Within, where you walk on fire and you sit next to Oprah if you pay $3,000. That's the solution. The mistake that I would make is I'm trying to solve their problems in a 60-minute workshop, and that's not enrolling them in the process. And so really think through, like, what are the core assumptions that I need the person to make in order to be enrolled in my offer? And then reverse engineer those assumptions so that you're doing an audit process at the beginning of the workshop to get them to visualize and see that they actually have the problem that you're actually solving. Any other questions? Yeah.
When you talked about breaking up something like an hour with a workshop style, like take a break, especially if you're putting them into groups. I like a quick iPhone notes thing that's simple, but sometimes you get put into a group.
Yes.
And I think we've all been in a group where it goes on a little bit too long. Like there's not much to chat about. You're finished, but the group next door's still going. How do you decide how long to keep that? And is the goal not really to get them to do like high value work, but more just take a break and then like get them right back to it as quick as you can? Or like,
so I like the shorter breaks. I almost rather you do more breaks, but make them shorter. Think 90 seconds is a good middle ground, 60 to 120 seconds being kind of that range there. You want people to be introduced to people that they don't already know, learn something interesting about that person, and share something that makes it vulnerable. That's the key, because now all of a sudden their energy field's open, right? When you're just sharing surface level stuff, who cares? It's not a meaningful interaction. So if you're going to take the time in your workshop, in your presentation, to really have people connect with each other, make sure it's a meaningful interaction where when you re-engage in the workshop, now they feel more connected to the audience that's sitting around them.
Yeah. How do you do that articulate, like what you just mentioned? Like what you do? How do you said you're creating that vulnerability to create like emotional openness, right?
I think in full transparency, I don't know if I've created a lot of vulnerability in this room right now. Like everyone mentioned that they have a fear of public speaking. Who the fuck doesn't?
No, I meant within what you do, within what we were talking about, like what your particular expertise is right now.
Wait, are you saying for the topics that I typically talk about?
Correct.
So for like chemical warfare?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll talk about like who eats conventionally grown strawberries by a show of hands. Right, strawberries. So I'll use a story about Tom Brady and why Tom Brady doesn't eat conventionally grown strawberries. Because what you can do with conventionally grown strawberries, you can put them in a juicer, and you can take that juice and use that as a pesticide on your crops. It's pretty impactful. And the reason why that's possible is that strawberries have really porous skins. So when you spray pesticides on the strawberries, the pesticides are absorbed in the strawberry. You can't just wash it off with vinegar or baking soda, right? And so people think like, oh, if I have, and there's actually a fruit and vegetable wash right down there by his feet that I bought Jay, because when I house sit for Jay and I watch the dogs, sometimes I'll sneak in some like clean products because I'm like, you know, like Jay had Dawn dish soap out there, and I'm like, he can't like guest see that you have Dawn dish soap, so I put it under the sink. So like, yeah, it's like so I'll use a story about Tom Brady to teach people about conventionally grown strawberries and berries as a whole having porous skins, where really what you should be doing is buying organic berries, right? As the main call to action of that story. So it really depends on what you're trying to teach and the context. You're in the Catholic community, pastors do this better than anyone. I'm not sure if Catholic was the right word. Protestant,
Yeah, no,
Christian.
Something I'm doing right now is that, like, I'm actually trying to form an alumni network with a fraternity that I founded, and a lot of people have told me, well, maybe you should just work on, forming an alumni network with just generated Catholic students, just for FSU. All FSU students who have gone to the Catholic student, and I feel like this talk is very particularly relevant to me because now I'm going to have to be making, bigger offers to everybody, saying, driving donor engagement for the Catholic student union.
Totally.
Engaging people, and like you were saying, you have to create like, I guess, everything that you're talking about is so particularly relevant to just being able to persuade anybody of anything.
Totally.
To be able to buy them into an idea.
I mean, when Jehovah's Witnesses knock on my door, I'm like, these fucking idiots. I'm going to talk to them for 30 minutes. You knocked on the wrong door, motherfucker. Because I love learning about people, right, and how they got to where they're at. I think that the key and I say this at risk of like getting canceled for like like talking about how to get more people into your religion, but like the whole goal of religion is to increase your stakeholder base. Right? I mean, you got the Jews, you got the Islamic community, you got the Catholics and the Christians, and like...
Just trying to get anyone into anything.
Right. So you have to get them to agree with a core set of beliefs and assumptions.
There's universal principles.
Totally. And like, what do all religions teach? Love. Love. That's it. I mean, that is the core principle of religion, is love. Now, how they do it, love thy neighbor and the 10 Commandments, and there's a bunch of different ways that people explain it. But like, if you go to the root of Islam and Christianity and Judaism, they're teaching love. So if you're using agreement frames, you're using anchors, like you can use core concepts that your person that you're talking to believes in without them being like, if you were to use good core assumptions and core beliefs and anchoring with me, like, I'd be like, yeah, for sure, I support loving my fucking neighbor. Who doesn't? Right? Unless you're a terrorist, right? And obviously they're not going to admit to being a terrorist in a conversation with you. When they're up on stage, they think that if they're speaking too slowly, that the audience is going to lose attention. Without getting too political, a really great orator was Barack Obama. Whether you liked his politics or not, he was a really great communicator. That guy spoke slow as shit. He was so slow in his communication style. But what happened? You were hanging on every freaking word that guy said. So don't look at speed as the number one denominator of a good speaker versus a bad speaker. You want to speak fast and slow, loud and soft. You want to create vocal range. The one-dimensional speaker is monotone at the high level. They're monotone at the low level. They're speaking loud all the time. They're speaking soft all the time. You want to create some vocal nuance. And in order to do that, you need to recognize that all those ranges are actually pretty valuable.
In terms of like your physiology, like what are like specific things that you focus on like within your own body when you're coming up on stage?
The only thing worse than two hands in your pocket is one hand in your pocket. Your hands are one of the best engagement tool that you have. I think, and I think I have a slide on this. Here we go. You're leading perfect into my never evers. This list of never evers is, again, I tried to shorten it. These are the things that I would never recommend people do. Now, if you've recorded this, you probably heard me say or ah a few times. This is my first time giving this presentation. It's not perfect. Poor posture. When you have poor posture, what happens? You can't control your breathing. When you can't control your breathing, what happens? You can't control your emotional state. If you can't control your emotional state, what happens? How am I going to control the emotional state of the people in the room? So posture is extremely important. You want to take up space in the room. Arms wide is a strategy that I use. You got to be careful with that because this is the Jesus pose. And so what you want to do is mix up the Jesus pose with some, what's the right way to say this, like off-kilter poses, where you're doing something with one arm but not the other. The Jesus pose can be a little detrimental because if people feel that you're in the Jesus pose all the time, then you come off with preachy energy. And the second you come off with preachy energy, people are like, oh, he's selling me something. Right? And this is in the religious community, this happens often. The second people get that inclination, because the preachy energy is the sales energy. And so what you want to do is you want to disarm people with your body language and not create the association that you're trying to sell them an ideology or belief system that they don't have a tendency to believe in. So these are the never-evers. I kind of broke them up into mental traps, body language, and delivery. I could probably do a whole presentation just on what the fuck not to do in a presentation. So like, I won't dive into this. I think looking bored is probably one of the worst things that people do on stage. People make this mistake all the time. You know, the most interesting person in the room should be the person on stage. The way to be the most interesting person in the room is to be the most interested in the people in the room. And that's the nuance to public speaking. Because I'm interested in you and what you guys have to say and your life experience and how you think and how you function and the types of speeches that you need to deliver, that's what's making me interesting, not the fact that I know a bunch of freaking bullet points and have a bunch of red X's that I got from the emoji button on my computer. What's making this interesting is the fact that I actually give a fuck about what you're going through and how to make you a better communicator. Yes?
Do you feel like you need to adjust these based on the culture of your audience? For example, I have the situation, I talk to founders like from Sweden, Australia, Asia, and I feel like I have to kind of adjust.
You do, and I'm not the cultural nuance guy in the interest of not being, you know, the king of white appropriation or cultural appropriation. You got to be really careful with it when you accept, like for example, when you accept a business card in Japan, you have to accept it with two hands. You can't play with the business card, and you can't just accept it with two hands. You have to actually look at it and read it. And nod, right? You have to bow. So there are certain cultural nuances. When I get up on stage, you get what you get. You don't get what you don't get. If there's a Japanese guy in the crowd that's going to be offended by how I communicate, I used a few too many curse words, that's his loss, not mine. So I don't get too in my head about it. But I'm not going to speak in Saudi Arabia in front of the crown prince who could chop my dick off if I say something wrong. Right? So like I haven't been in those high stakes situations. Yeah. If you're speaking in front of the President of the United States, you should probably do certain things that maybe in front of a crowd like this, you might be a little more open to doing.
One thing I noticed though, in America, you can rather sell through emotions.
For sure.
For example, the doesn't make sense in a business case.
Sorry, hold on, repeat that because the dogs distracted me.
I'm just saying, like in America, it's vastly about emotions.
It is.
How do you feel about the service?
Of course.
The product? In Europe or Germany especially, like they just care about the hard facts. What does it do?
So Tony Robbins has this thing called urban, lurban, and drab.
What is that?
Urban, lurban, and drab. ERBN plus LRBN needs to be greater than drab. I'm just giving the Tony Robbins. Emotional reasons to buy now plus logical reasons to buy now need to be greater than dominant reasons to avoid buying. Urban, lurban, and drab. So you need to be able to mix the emotion with the logic. And the emotion plus the logic has to be greater than the dominant reasons to avoid buying. So you have to mix emotion in. There's no choice. You have to mix emotion in. Certain cultures, less emotional than others. So you got to be a little careful about how you use those emotional levers. But emotion is energy in motion, man. Like without emotion, we're robots. Look at what AI is humans without emotion. Or at least we're starting to get there, right? Any other questions?
What is the D again? Sorry.
Go ahead.
What is the D again?
Dominant reasons to avoid buying.
When we talk about pace of speaking and it says that don't go over time,
Yeah.
you mentioned how you're not big on scripting, it should flow.
Totally.
But do you, if, especially for a long one where you've got more chance of being off the mark, do you at least like have time points to
Yeah,
track?
so Andre's probably pissed at me because I'm going way over time and we got warm pizzas there. This is, don't go over time is specifically for conferences. It's really fucking disrespectful because there's a person after you who has their 30-minute slot, and if you're going 5 minutes over, now they only have 25 minutes, but they have a 30-minute presentation. So now you're throwing off the whole conference. Now lunchtime is thrown off 5 minutes because you decided to, stay up on stage. You guys aren't getting the hot pizza, when you want it because I'm taking a little bit too long,
So do you have a plan and keep an eye on like?
Yeah, so
on target?
typically at conferences, they have what's called a confidence monitor. So instead of this being here, there will be a screen in front of the stage where I'll be able to see the slides so I don't have to turn around and look. There's also typically a timestamp, so you can see how much time you have left. So like if it said I have 3 minutes left, I'd power through the next few slides and move towards the end. But you really want to make sure that you're mindful of your time. This is why doing practice runs is super important. Where that gets a little testy is people go on tangents. People go on diatribes. They go down rabbit holes. I wasn't afraid to do that here because I'm like, hey, if you guys have questions, ask me. Like, let's have a conversation. But at a conference, that can get really dangerous. If you forget what you were going to say and you go off on a tangent and start telling a story, that could be a 5-minute story. So you guys have to make sure in your story bank you have 30-second stories, you have 5-minute stories. Because someone might ask you a question where it's appropriate for a 5-minute story, but if you forget what you were going to say, a 30-second story might be a good interjection to lead you to the next slide.
I like that idea of having the bank ready because I'm like you. I like to speak with my main key points, but let it flow rather than trying to follow a script because then you're gonna fuck something up.
You want to have a tool belt, right? It has vocal range, it has stories, it has frameworks, it has jokes, so you can utilize that tool belt in your speaking so that you don't have to be scripted.
But then the problem with not being scripted and flowing is you have no idea if you're on target or not, and you might end up squishing the end because it's like you see the timer.
Practice. I've never said any of what, I didn't come on thinking I was going to do urban, lurban, and drab. Right. I didn't think I was going to be teaching half the stuff that we've talked about. Okay. But I have a tool belt.
Yeah.
And fortunately that tool belt has been built over years and years and years. It's very layered, so I can get on stage and not feel like I have to script every single thing. Nice. If you script everything, the second you go off script, you're going to start dripping in sweat, anxiety's going to go up, cortisol is going to go up, you're going to get stuck in your head, and now you're not focused on giving. The best public speaking tip is to focus on giving to the audience. When you start focusing on yourself, do I look okay? Do I sound okay? Am I speaking too fast or too slow? Once you start focusing on me, I call it, you have a case of the me-me's. What you want is a case of the wee-wees. I don't mean wee-wees like your dick. Wee-wees, I mean wee-wees as in like, the best thing that I can do right now is focus on all of you guys in front of me. If I'm sitting here focused on myself or the fact that I have a bead of sweat dripping down my face, I'm focusing on the wrong stuff.
Do you have any strategies for simmering down your nervous system before you get on stage or you're on the panel?
For sure.
Especially I tried breathing exercises. They somewhat help.
Breath work can beta blockers. I mean, unless you're taking beta blockers on a consistent basis, would not recommend.
I'm on a panel, I speak on panels, and sometimes it can be very nerve-wracking. Some of the youngest people on stage.
Totally. That's your superpower. Yeah. It's all in the reframe, bro. I'm anxious. No, I'm excited. I'm the youngest person on stage. That gives me a competitive advantage. You got to be able to reframe these beliefs by understanding what they are. Yes, shake it out. Right? There's a reason why people, before they do their basketball game, the professional athletes, they shake it out. Tony Robbins, he shakes it out. He does a little trampoline thing. What I wanted to do before this is Jay's girlfriend, Madison, has a shake plate. I wanted to try the shake plate. We didn't have enough time to try it, and I don't think she could find the clicker. But I wanted to try the shake plate, see if that could work out some of the nervous energy. And Tony Robbins says, make a move, right? So you want to create a move that tells your nervous system it's time to fucking go. And if you have that move, then you're able to put yourself in an emotional state where you're going to be able to perform. If you don't have any of those mnemonics, things to repeat to yourself, motions to do, you need to create them. And that starts with identifying the things that are holding you back on the presentation, right? So I'm the youngest person on stage, limiting belief, right? I get really nervous before presenting, limiting belief. So start to identify those, and then you can systematically find ways to overcome those. But it first starts with the audit, right? Like audit your own belief system, audit your own psychology, understand what it is that's getting stuck in your head and your nervous system, and then you can remove those things. But if they're going unchecked, then you're going to continue to feel like that until you're the 50-year-old on stage and you're looking at a bunch of 30-year-olds and you're like, oh, now I'm the fucking old guy on stage. Well, you had 25 years to figure it out, so now's the time.
Do one more question before pizzas.
Okay.
Thank you. Quick question. Do you sing? Because I'm a singer, and I find it, I've done a lot of public speeches actually in the Catholic community. I find it 10 times harder to like sing on stage rather than like to speak.
Yeah.
Do you sing? Because I
So-
heard you talking about like vocal warm-ups. So.
Totally. So for those of you who had a stutter, there's a weird part of the human brain where your brain can't tell the difference between singing and speaking. So it uses the same part of the brain to sing and to speak, but you can't stutter when you sing. So what broke me out of my stutter was not 10 years of speech therapy, it was stage acting, because they forced me to do singing, they forced me to do improv. Those were the things that actually helped me become a better communicator, because it gave me the confidence that I could communicate without stuttering. So yeah, dude, blast some music in the shower and belt some tunes. I don't know what you're belting if
No, I mean like, no, I can sing in front of people, but it's just like it's much harder to sing in front of people than to speak in front of people.
I get that. Yeah, no, I don't think anyone in the room here is a professional singer, but if we put on some Shania Twain, I'm gonna hear you fucking, go for it, bro. So yeah, I think maybe part of your job you do have to sing on stage. I don't, right? Like that's not something that people are asking me for. I'm not a professional, so like fortunately that's not the advice people are asking me for. We already covered this one. I'll try to run through this. If you're not really locked in on what your offer is, and you're not really convinced that offer is valuable to people, doesn't matter how great your offer is, your speech is not going to lead them into that transformation. So really get clear on your offer, get clear on the transformation that offer provides, and know that by communicating your framework, by communicating your stories, by telling the jokes, by crafting those anchors, that you're leading people down a path to get the outcome that will best serve them. This is just a 3-part formula for any offer. Jay Feldman over here is probably much, much better at this than I am. Really what you want to focus on here is a conversational tonality and then detachment from the outcome. What's the least attractive thing in the world? The needy guy at the bar who's trying to pick up the girl. Why? Because neediness is such an unattractive energy. No one likes neediness. So as you move towards the end of your presentation, people have this tendency to like kind of stiffen up, right? The preacher has a tendency to like preach more, and what you want to do is be in that conversational energy and tonality that really tells people that you're comfortable in your skin and that what you have to offer is actually in their best interest. So this is the first time I'm talking about this. I just built a course for public speaking. You guys are literally the very first people to hear about it. It's 325 training videos across 20 modules. I was on the phone with Go High Level today. I'm very happy to announce that it's there. It's not perfect, but it's there. Thank you. I'm very excited for it. And my best friend Jay has really encouraged me to take on a few one-on-one clients. This is not something I'm going to be doing forever, but I want to help people in the room who are looking to develop, whether it's a keynote presentation, a workshop, pitch to investors. I've done all of them. I've failed at them. I've succeeded at them. I know the do's and the don'ts. So I'm happy to communicate with you guys after the fact if you guys want to dive into one-on-one coaching. The online course, I told you guys that public speaking would be $1 million opportunity. Obviously, we live in an information age where you can get any information from ChatGPT. So it's not $1 million. It's only $97. I'm launching it to the first 100 people at $97 because I really want the feedback. I really want people to tell me what they like and what they don't like about the program. So if you'd like, feel free to scan the QR code. You can download the slides from today. You can grab the course for $97. You can book a call with me for one-on-one coaching. There's no pressure. I'm trying to give you guys all the energy that I have, and I'm trying to give you guys all the tips and tricks that I have. So even if you just want to hop on a one-on-one call with me for 45 minutes and you want some advice, some insights, some perspective on how to be a better communicator, I'm happy to do so. Thanks, guys.
Let's get a quick selfie.
Yeah.
And actually, I'm going to apply what I just learned real quick. Who here feels like, unless I have a pizza in front of them, they're not going to care about that? Who here feels like if they were 6'5" and just had a haircut, they would be a better public speaker? Who here needs a pizza right now?
I do.
All right. One quick selfie and we'll get pizzas.
That was dope, bro. That was fun.
That's fucking awesome, man.
Great shit, bro.
Everybody, here. Nice.
That was dope, bro. That was fun. That was fun. Yeah. We'll do it again. Yeah, let's do it.